Dear Maddie, there's a party at my house tomorrow night. Mom said I can invite a friend if I want to. Do you want to come? Yes, no, maybe. Logan. Madeleine Rose Manchester has absolutely no intention of invading the White House, but she knew 7 different ways she could do it if she wanted to. After all, Logan had lived in there less than a year, and already he and Maddie had found 4 tunnels, 2 pseudo-secret passageways, and a cabinet near the kitchen that smelled faintly of cheese and only partially blocked an old service elevator that really wasn't boarded up as everyone thought. Charlie, Maddie said to the big man in the passenger seat of the dark SUV. He turned to look at where she sat, her seatbelt snugly around her. Even though everyone knew silk wrinkled, and Maddie had never had a silk dress before. She already complained about it, but Charlie had told her that it was either wear a seatbelt or walk, and her black leather shoes were too new, and they'd already started to pinch her feet. And Logan had told her there might be dancing later. Maddie dearly hoped there would be dancing. "What's your need, Mad?" Charlie asked while Walter kept driving. "Did you know that there's a place under the stairs in the East Wing that's full of spiders and died during the Nixon administration? Do you think it's true?" "I don't think that's true," she said without really waiting for Charlie to answer. "I could ask Dad," Maddie went on, but he didn't work here then. At least I don't think he worked here then. I mean, I know he's old, like really, really old, but is he that old?" Charlie laughed, but Maddie wasn't exactly sure what was so funny. "I'm not sure, Mad, but you should say it exactly like that when you ask him." This sounded like a very good idea to Maddie. "Thank you, Charlie. I'll do that." She thought of it for a moment and then went on. "Did you know it's possible to crawl all the way from Logan's dad's office to the press room using the air docks?" "No." Charlie shook his head. "It's not." Sure it is," Maddie told him. "Logan bet me $5 that I couldn't do it, so I did. And then he gave me five ones instead of 5 because Lincoln was his favorite." "You can reach the Oval Office via the air ducts?" Charlie asked, spinning to look at her. "Yes, but I ruined my favorite pink leggings." "Then you should definitely tell your dad that. He doesn't care about my leggings," Maddie said, and Charlie shook his head. "Not about that. Never mind, Matt. I'll tell him." When they finally reached a pair of tall iron gates, Maddie couldn't help but swing her legs and nervously kick at the back of Charlie's seat. But Charlie just rolled down his window and told a man with a clipboard, "We have a VIP guest for Rascal." The guard looked in the back seat and smiled when he saw Maddie. Though through the tinted windows, she could see other guards circling the vehicle. Dogs sniffed around the bumpers, but the guard kept his gaze trained on her. "Looks like a high-risk entrance to me, boys. I don't think we should let her in." "Hey, Felix," Maddie said, leaning forward. "Did you know that you can fit 2 kids and 3 kittens in the compartment underneath Logan's dad's desk? If the kittens are tame, that is. I wouldn't want to try with mean kittens." "Neither would I," Felix said, just as one of the men announced, "You're clear." Then Felix stepped back and waved them through the gates. "Have fun at the party." Logan never had fun at parties. In his experience, they very rarely met pizza and bounce houses and ice cream. Not anymore, sure. There was usually cake, but they were always fancy cakes that were tiny, and Logan's mom usually gave him the look if he ate more than 4. And since the time he asked the Prime Minister of Canada if she was going to eat her cake, he hadn't been allowed to sit at the table with his parents, which, in Logan's opinion, was just as well. "Is Maddie here yet?" he asked his mother. "I don't know. Is she under the bed?" Logan's mom grinned as she glanced through the bathroom door at the giant canopy bed upon which Logan lay. "No, we don't fit." "I'm not going to ask you how you know that." his mother said, and went back to fixing her makeup. When the phone rang, she reached for it, and Logan heard her talking. Yes, excellent. Send her up. Is Maddie? She's on her way up. His mother told him, and Logan bounced off the bed, ran into the hallway, then flew down the big stairs of the residence. The further he got from his mother, the more chaotic everything became. There were people with huge bunches of flowers and stairs running up and down the stairs in the high heels. But all Logan really saw was Maddie. Mad dog! Logan screamed from the top of the stairs, racing to join her on the landing below. You look... Is my dress too wrinkled? Maddie blurted out as if the answer really, really mattered. He shook his head. No, I don't think so. Then Logan trailed off as he followed Maddie's gaze through the bulletproof glass. The chaos of the building all disappeared as, outside, a helicopter landed on the lawn. A group of men and women were running towards the house, crouching low beneath the helicopter's spinning blades. Only the last two men of the chopper walked upright, laughing and talking as they strolled through the doors. Maddie turned to Logan. Dad's home. Maddie couldn't be sure if she was talking about Logan's father or her own. The statement was true in either case, but there was no denying that as the two dads came into the house, the place went a little more and a little less crazy. There was an energy that always surrounded Logan's father. Some people stopped, some people stared, but there was another group of people who seemed to consistently swirl and swarm around him, like a hive of bees caught inside a series of very tiny tornadoes spinning in his orbit while everyone else hurried to get out the way. Everyone except Logan's mom. She didn't spin or rush or stare as she walked towards her husband, her red dress flowing behind her as she moved down the stairs. You're late, she said. Mr. President, one of his assistants cut in. The speaker is waiting for you. He can wait until the president has kissed his wife and hugged his son and changed into something decent, the first lady told the woman, and with that, the tiny tornadoes moved on to another part of the White House. Hello, darling, Logan's mom told the first lady as he leaned down to kiss her. When he pulled away, she made a face and said, You smell. Then he shifted Then she shifted her gaze on to Maddie. What are we gonna do with them, Mad? Maddie could only shake her head. Boys always smell, she said truthfully. You'll get used to it, sweetheart, Logan's mom told her, but Logan's dad didn't seem to mind. He just reached for his son and said, Hey, kiddo. Then he turned to Maddie, Cadet. Maddie dropped into a curtsy. It's a pleasure to see you again, Logan's dad. Are you and you, Manchester's daughter? The president bowed at his waist. You are far lovelier sight than your father, I can assure you. Thank you. My dress wasn't wrinkled when I put it on. You should know, the wrinkles are entirely Charlie's fault. I'll have a word with Charlie, the president said as Maddie's dad tried to pull her into a hug. Come here, Mad. She pulled away and looked at the first lady. You're right, they do stink. This is what I get for keeping the president safe, Maddie's dad asked. For treasonous deer? It's hard work, I'm sure. The first lady turned to her husband. Now, do I need to remind you the pair of you that the Russian Prime Minister and his entire entourage, your entire cabinet, and several viewers of C-SPAN are expecting our very first state dinner to commence in 45 minutes. Logan's dad cut a look at Maddie's. Save me from her, Manchester. But Maddie's father just shook his head. Sorry, President, this time you're on your own. It wasn't until the First Lady dragged the president upstairs that Maddie felt Logan stir beside her. He'd been perfectly quiet, perfectly still, and as if content by to the mere fly on the wall in the president's presence. Then her father asked, How you doing, rascal? And Logan's eyes got bigger. Did my dad really kill a deer? No, Maddie's father crouched against the windowsill, bringing himself down closer to Logan's level. Your father and the senator from Kentucky and I sat in a tree in the woods for 7 hours, hoping to kill a deer. And you didn't see one? Logan asked. No, Maddie's dad shook his head slowly. We saw one. Logan's eyes were wide. And my dad didn't shoot it? No. Maddie's dad sounded like he was carefully considering the answer. Your dad was more interested in getting a vote out of the senator from Kentucky. Logan still looked confused. You had a gun. Why didn't you shoot it? Maddie's father seemed to think that this was an excellent question. He leaned a little lower. Because I don't shoot. Because when I shoot, it isn't for fun. It's because you have to, Logan said. Maddie's father nodded. And what's more important than shooting, rascal? Logan only had to think about the answer for a moment, making sure you don't have to. Maddie's dad tousled Logan's hair. Good job. And when Maddie's father tried to pull her into another hug, Maddie pushed away even though her dress was already wrinkled. You really do smell, Dad. Okay, Mad Dog, I give up. I'll go shower. He started down the stairs. Now, what are you two gonna do for the next 45 minutes? Maddie and Logan looked at each other and gave almost identical shrugs. Fine. Don't tell me. Just stay in the house and stay out of the way. It's kind of crazy around here. He was almost out of sight before they said in unison, we noticed. Maddie was used to being pseudo-invisible, but Logan had been in the spotlight so often in the past year or two that she could tell it was something of a new, not entirely unwelcome feeling as they walked through the chaos of the White House. Doors slammed and phones rang, but no one noticed the first son and his friend. When Logan said "in here" and punched a number into the keypad beside the door, and Maddie had never noticed before, the door sprang open. He pulled Maddie into the hallway that was totally and completely silent. That's better, he said, then smiled at her. Are we supposed to be in here? Logan shrugged. Probably not. But if they really wanted to keep us out, they shouldn't have let me see them punch it in the code that one time. Maddie thought that he made a very, very excellent point. Everyone knew that Logan was really good at remembering things. All things, like phone numbers and access numbers and where the White House stored its chocolate. It had been Maddie's experience that the White House maintained a supply of excellent chocolate, and that what Maddie was thinking, and that's what Maddie was thinking about when they found themselves in a long, empty hallway that ran from the loaded docks to the kitchen. They walked in silence for a long time until they reached a place where the hall branched. Maddie knew they should turn around. Her dad and Logan's parents were probably looking for them soon. She was just about to drag him back to the crowds and people and the noise when three men came rushing down the corridor, pushing a large rolling cart, almost oblivious to the 10-year-old who stood in their way. Logan said, "Excuse me," because he was a good kid in that way. But Maddie's dad's job didn't depend on being nice to strangers. So she said, "How rude," as they passed. For a moment, she and Logan stood together in the corridor, a little stunned. Then something about the men in their location within the White House made her stop, wonder. Are they supposed to be here? She asked. Logan grimaced. Russian security. The Russian delegation said that they would only eat their own food prepared by their own chefs. They had to bring it in and keep it under armed guard and everything. Maddie made a face. I wouldn't like that. Eating cold food just because someone might want to kill me. She was starting to say something else when suddenly Logan reached into his pocket and blurted out, "Here," as he thrust a small blue box toward her. "What is it?" Maddie asked. "A gift," Logan said, "for you." "You got me a gift? Why?" Logan looked like he wanted to roll his eyes, but he didn't. Because you're my friend. Did you get something for all your friends? She asked him, even in the too bright fluorescent glare of the hallway, a shadow seemed to cross over Logan's face. You're my only friend, he said, and Maddie didn't ask more questions. Um, uh, she reached for the package slowly, revertly. Then she pulled on the little white bow and opened the box. Uh, a moment later, she was looking down at a piece of gold. It's so shiny, she said. It's a bracelet. Do you like it? I love it. Logan helped her put it on, and Maddie turned her wrist, letting the light reflect on the delicate chain and dangling charms. Um, it's a little big, he told her, but I wanted you to be able to wear it when you get older. I'll never take it off, Maddie said, and in that moment she had never met anything more. A silence stretched between them, and Logan had to look away, like staring at Maddie, and her shiny gold bracelet was like staring at the sun. He blinked and said, "Well, I suppose we should get what are you two doing here?" The First Lady's voice echoed down the hall, cutting Logan off. "We were staying out the way," Maddie announced as she spun. She was very proud of the fact and thought it was high time some grown-ups bragged about them for their discretion. "That's a good plan," Logan's mother told her. It's a zoo out there." "Mom, do Maddie and I have to go? Couldn't we just watch TV in the residence or something?" When the First Lady looked at Logan, her eyes were a little sad. Like part of her wished that she could give him a normal night in a normal house. But Logan was never going to have be normal ever again. She couldn't bring herself to lie about that. "You could watch TV," the First Lady told him, "but I'm afraid tonight is very important to your father. Our relations with Russia are strained, and he thinks that if you go, I go, and it might you go and I go. It might be more of a family thing than a political thing. Does that make sense?" Logan nodded grimly. "Yeah, it does." Then he looked at his mother as if he were seeing her for the first time. "Why are you down here? Why were you looking for us?" "No," she smoothed the part of his hair that never did lie flat. "The kitchen called. There was some sort of problem. Uh, though, though why they need me, I'll never know. I like your bracelet, Maddie." Maddie hid her blush. "I like your dress." "Me too, mainly because it does this." When the First Lady started to spin, the wisps of red fabric floated around her like a cloud. "It's a twirling dress." Maddie wanted to clap. "I know!" The First Lady sounded like a 10-year-old self. Logan looked at them, and he would never ever understand girls, but he didn't bother to say so. "Well, I'd better go to see what they want me, so we can get this show on the road. You two should head that way. We'll be starting soon." "Yes, ma'am," Maddie said as the First Lady walked away, leaving Maddie and Logan alone. They'd been alone about 100 times over the past year, but when Maddie moved, her bracelet jiggled, and it felt like a different kind of alone than they had been before. "So," Logan said, looking at her. "So," Maddie said back, because what else could she do? He held his arm out. Shall we, my lady?" Maddie dropped a crooked curtsy, then took his arm. "Why, yes, sir." They didn't talk. They didn't laugh. They just walked towards the fanciest part of the fanciest party in the country, arm in arm, like they weren't 10 years old at all. This time they heard the three men before they saw them. The big cart made a squeaky, rattling noise as it rolled over the tiled floor, and Maddie and Logan knew to move out the way. Russians, it seemed like to take half out of the middle. So she and Logan pressed against the wall, but Maddie felt the cold tile through the mesh fabric of her dress. The men were shouting loud and fast in Russian, and Maddie didn't understand a word. She pressed close to Logan for a reason she didn't know or understand. Two of the Russians seemed really young, probably in their 20s. they had short, dark hair and expensive suits with ugly ties. Uh, one of them pointed at the doors that seemed a mile away, and Maddie caught a flash of tattoo on his wrist, a weird two-headed bird being eaten by a wolf. Her first thought was that she couldn't imagine why anybody would want something that ugly on their skin forever. Her second thought was that the muscles in Logan's arms had suddenly gone tight. Her hand hurt as he bent his arm, squeezing her fingers in the bend of his elbow. But Logan didn't even notice. When the men passed, Maddie felt a rush of air, like a breeze in their wake. But one of the men, the one with the tattoo, paused for a moment. He looked right at Logan, recognizing him, considering something. Then the other men shouted. When the other men shouted, he kept his eyes trained on Logan. Then he said something in Russian and winked. It wasn't playful. It wasn't teasing. And right then, Maddie's head knew what her gut had suspected since they first saw their ugly ties. These men weren't Russian Secret Service. Maddie knew it in her bones, in her blood. So who were they? And why were they there? Suddenly, Maddie's throat was tight. Her heart was pounding. Logan, she started, but Maddie trailed off as she followed Logan's gaze. The Russians were 10 feet away and moving fast towards the doors and were loading docks. Pushing the heavy cart that seemed heavier than when they first pushed it. If they were bringing in their delegation's meals, wouldn't the cart be lighter on the way out? Maddie wondered, and then she saw it, a piece of gauzy red fabric that protruded from beneath the container's door, floating on the breeze. Logan? The words were practically a gasp. Maddie felt him moving, digging into his pocket as Maddie pulled away. She was starting to run towards them, to chase and follow and bite. Maddie was an excellent biter, but Logan was grabbing her arm with one hand, and the other in the other he held a tiny button that he had to keep at him at all times. When he pushed it, for a second nothing happened. Then Maddie heard her father's voice. "There you are!" Her dad was smiling, laughing. He was in his dark tux, and his hair was damp from the shower. He was so handsome and tall and strong and happy. Her father was happy. Then he stopped and brought one hand to his earpiece, and everything changed. "What is it?" he asked Logan, who was trembling. And they could still hear the rattling of the cart wheels as the Russians broke into run. "My mom, they have..." The signs were starting to blare as Maddie's dad was already breaking away and drawing his weapon. Maddie had seen his gun a million times, but she'd never seen it like this. Like it had like it was an extension of him, a far colder and deadlier limb. "You two, hide!" her dad yelled as they started to run, and the Russians started to fire.